Welcome to the Goddesses of Social Work podcast, hosted by Renita Ray Davis, licensed clinical social worker, board-approved social work clinical supervisor, and facilitator of the Goddesses of Social Work supervision community. Join us as we travel through the social work journeys told by the Goddesses of Social Work community members, past and present, as they make their way toward clinical licensure.
Welcome to the Goddesses of Social Work podcast. I'm your host, Renita Ray Davis, and I'm here today with Sandra Ledyard, LCSW. Today's guest is Sandra Ledyard, an ordained minister, licensed clinical social worker, and tireless advocate for dementia care. She's the co-founder and executive director of Joe Bell's Alzheimer's and Dementia Brain Health Ministries, and also leads the Alzheimer's Initiative at the First CME Church of Montgomery, Alabama. Reverend Ledyard hosts educational forums and support groups, connecting caregivers and communities with vital brain health resources, a certified dementia dialogues instructor, and member of the Alzheimer's Association advocacy teams. She's on a mission to uplift the most vulnerable through faith, education, and compassionate care. Welcome to the show, Reverend Ledyard.
Good morning, good afternoon, and thank you so much for the invitation. I'm so happy to be here, Renita.
So glad you're here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Reverend Ledyard, I love reading your bio. I know there's so much more to your story, but love that you're a clinical social worker and love that for us. But also, you are a certified dementia dialogues instructor. And that's the second time I've heard that this month. And so I'm curious, what is a certified dementia dialogues instructor?
Okay, so within the social work field, as practitioners, we have different specialties. And this particular option for me came about due to my work that began in Alzheimer's and dementia research and study in 2023. And the Office for the Study of Aging through the Arnold School of Public Health through the University of South Carolina has this program, Dementia Dialogues, where people with healthcare backgrounds, social workers, counselors, teachers, medical professionals, they can sign up for this training that will prepare them for work in the field as practitioners with people from the population of dementia, Alzheimer's, and other people with cognitive impairments or issues that require that kind of intensive work. So it is a 5-module study where you are trained and become familiar with the issues related to dementia. What is dementia? What is Alzheimer's? The different issues related to caregiving, medical, what's happening in the profession at this time, what are the resources available, what types of medications are available, and how to connect people within your locale with services that they need. So the strategies are effective. It is based on evidence-based. It's evidence-informed type of training, and it's 5 modules addressing different topics. And then after the 5 modules are completed, you have an intensive with the director of the Dementia Dialogues program, and that's where you complete the work to become certified. Wow. And after that, you can access the templates and the curriculum materials that will help you to present workshops in the public sphere. Yes. So it's helpful. It's been tremendously helpful to me. And in addition to that, I did some additional work with the Alzheimer's Foundation of America, who has a program. It's not as intensive, but they do offer you a certification as well. And I think it's something social workers, if they're interested in working in the field of gerontology, it's something that they can pursue inexpensively. And it's a great credential to have.
Is that through the NASW?
No, this is through, I do not think there's an affiliation. It's not specifically to the profession of social work, because it could be licensed professional counselors, family counselors, could be teachers, it could be different people in the medical profession. So it's not exclusively through NASW, but at some point, I do believe in the future, I don't think it'll be long, NASW will have a similar component available for social work students to achieve some type of certification. Because at this time, there's no like nationwide certification for this particular field. So different entities, schools, and different programs have coordinated dementia training programs, but there's no one specific, like this is the credential you have to have to become a dementia practitioner. Right now, different schools that have received grants and funding for study within their aging program through their medical schools or their schools of public health are offering these types of training, as well as like hospital, Johns Hopkins University has a program, and a few other, medical schools offer training that would help you to acquire the skills you need to be effective as a dementia social work practitioner.
You know, I know you may not be the expert on it, but I am curious because you do have so many accomplishments in this particular area. Do you think there's any value in us becoming credentialed in this work, especially as we know the stats are rising?
Well, I do believe so because I do believe that this field is going to definitely expand in, as the numbers continue to rise and the projections for 20 and 30 years, 10, 15, 20 years, where we're going to have triple the number of people that have dementia. The numbers now are hovering in the United States about 7 million, and they anticipate those numbers may double in the next 20 years. So I believe that there will be a demand for social workers to provide services. And I believe at that point, I would say in less than 10 years, we'll have some kind of formal system where more social work schools will have maybe dementia study as a concentration, and there will be more opportunities for social workers to work in this field and get definitely some satisfaction out of serving the needs of this population.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you for educating us so early on, so early on into this interview. And that's good news to have. And maybe if there's some
Yeah,
social workers who are wondering what their trajectory in this career could be, it feels like there is a massive need and one that could also be a fulfilling outcome for them as well.
absolutely. And,
Yeah.
a little research into the a lot of the medical schools have brain health centers now and memory care centers where they're doing a lot of research and offering training on dementia, similar to dementia dialogues, maybe not to be certified, but definitely to raise your awareness and help you to become more competent.
Yeah. Awesome. Reverend Ledyard, we're going to get into a little bit more personal part of the interview. And I'm curious, what did you want to be when did you always know you wanted to be a social worker, or did you have something else in mind, or who did you want to be most like when you were growing up?
Well, I come from a family of five children, and my parents are from the South. They're from Montgomery, Alabama. So, based on their upbringing, they grew up during the Jim Crow era. So, in that time frame, there were limited opportunities for them in terms of different types of profession. But they decided they wanted to raise their children in another location, so they moved to New York. And my mother had five kids, but overall, my family in New York was small, and I didn't have any kind of like role models to look up to in terms of what I might, go and talk to so and so about becoming this or that. So most of what we were exposed to, maybe in church or on television, and during that time, there were limited role models for Black children on TV. And one of them that stood out for me during that time, which was during the civil rights era, it was a lot of upheaval, a lot of discord, a lot of confusion, a lot of just I don't know, a lot of static. Things just were not peaceful. So it was like from day to day, it was more about just kind of like getting through everything that was going on in the world. And the Vietnam War was raging, and I just, you would hear different songs about the war and bringing the boys home. And, it was a confusing time and a lot of turmoil. So one thing that stood out for me was this character on the show called Jul Julia. Julia. It was Diana Carroll, and she had a son, and his name was Corey Baker, and she was a nurse. And that we look forward to seeing her on television on a weekly basis. And she was the really one of the only professionals that I observed in most of the women that you saw on television were doing roles that were more domestic. So she was one person that stood out. And my aunt was actually pursuing nursing in high school. And so nursing, some kind of putting hands-on care was in the background. And then my mother went to nursing school subsequent to my aunt going. She went to nursing school. So that was one area where you thought, well, either nursing or maybe teaching, because you have African American teachers at that time. So how I got to social work, I cannot tell you how that came, because I didn't at that time in my life as a child, you didn't know anything about social work. You just knew, you go to the doctor, you see the nurse, you see this. We weren't getting exposed to a lot of things. So it was kind of like a transitional period. Then when I went to high school, I became familiar with guidance counselors and the work they did, and that interested me. So I think that's where my interest was piqued in doing some kind of work that would support the well-being of individuals and link them to different resources and things along those lines. I felt I would be comfortable doing that. But how far I could go within the, career-wise, I would have never dreamed at that time that I would achieve a master's degree, because my mother had 5 children. 4 of them survived into adulthood, and I'm the only one that went to college, that graduated from college. So the perceptions of what's possible were somewhat limited in my parents' minds because of the Jim Crow era that they grew up in, and some of that kind of translated to how far they could push us, because Black people only went so far during their generation, we say, in the area that they grew up, and they were more labor oriented. They were not professional people. So all things considered, I think I was destined for this work. And I'm here, and still, who I would have never dreamed at this point in my life that I would be looking to uh, become more engaged in doing things in the different areas, especially Alzheimer's and dementia, with working with seniors. That was not on the agenda. So this came about, in a kind of roundabout way. But I'm thrilled that I have the opportunity to pursue it and research it and become more knowledgeable and share that knowledge with other people, especially caregivers and people that may be underserved in different communities.
Absolutely. And aren't we glad you became a social worker? And we're going to get into how you got into the dementia space. I hope you'll share that part of your journey with us. But you said your parents, and understandably so, didn't know how far they could push you. And
Right.
then yet here you are with a master's degree in social work, and not just a master's degree, you're clinically licensed in New York, which is one of the harder places to get licensed in as a social worker. And I'm curious, where did that pushing of yourself come from as it relates to your career and your education?
Well, actually, once I had made it through, my desire was to go to the New York University. I had applied to different schools, and I said, if I get in, I'm going to work as hard as I can. And I did. I worked as hard as I could, got good grades. And I said, well, I'm going to go as far as I can, because that was a clinical setting where most of the people that went through that program were there because they wanted to at some point become a license and also open their own practice one day. But that opening the practice wasn't my goal, but I did want to obtain as much wisdom and knowledge that I could. So my goal, I didn't even know how far you could go having a license at that time. So I pushed myself, and people were encouraging me. So that was the next logical step. After you get the master's degree, you go ahead and take the exam, and then you can continue moving forward, not knowing, of course, that I did not plan to work as a, independently in my own practice, but take it as far as I could take it, go as far as I could. And that's what I did with it. And I passed, considering I did not really have a truly clinical internship, because my background at that time was in child welfare. And I just felt that was going to hinder me, not having a real therapeutic environment where I was working one-on-one with clients. I felt that would hinder me, and I thought that would impact my ability to be successful on the exam. But it turns out I had acquired enough and gotten what I needed, and it worked out well. So I'm thankful for that.
I
And
love
I
that you,
encourage all our students to
yes.
continue to do their best and press on. And you're not going to know it all, but you got to have the confidence. You have what you need. It's there. Just continue to press on and go as far as you can. The sky is the limit at this point for social workers. This is an excellent profession to be in at this time.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you said that, because I hear over and over again that only because I worked over here or I did this work, I don't need to either take the clinical exam and or I don't have what it takes to pass the clinical exam. And that's not the case at all. If you got a
No.
master's degree and you
Yes.
have done whatever, the board of your state says you need to do as far as supervision and or education, you absolutely have what it takes to become a clinical social
You,
worker.
you,
And I love that you said you didn't realize how far that clinical license was going to take you. Love
I
to hear
did
what
not.
that experience was for you. But a lot of people don't know because, again, they haven't seen people who look like you, who look like me, clinically licensed in their areas growing up. And so they don't realize how far a clinical license can actually get them. So they don't push themselves to take it.
And it could be that mental health is a pretty uh, unpredictable field to be in. And some people might have a little apprehension about working with certain populations, certain types of clients. And I found myself in some really difficult situations that I had no control over. And I thank God that I was able to get through it. But everybody out there has the potential to one day need therapy. So you don't know who you're gonna, when you are in training, you don't know who's gonna come to the table and what you're gonna have to deal with. But somehow you do have the skills, you have the knowledge, you have the wisdom. You just have to have the confidence. It'll come. Sometimes you amaze yourself at what you can do and what you can accomplish. And it's great to see people go from being in a state of depression to where they're up about, more active, more engaged, socializing. That's amazing. It's worth it when you see that, especially with young people. When, in the time we're living in now where social isolation is an issue with in each category, from childhood to senior citizens, um, we we need to be as engaging and inviting and welcoming as possible. We have what people need, and we just have to have the confidence. And it's there. It's there. Sometimes people just need a hello, just need someone to listen to them. And, just nod your head and say, yeah, I get it. I get it. So they have it. They just have to, be increase their level of confidence, and that comes with time.
And it comes with listening to people like you, Reverend Ledyard,
Oh,
who, you had all the reasons not to push yourself. Your parents didn't know to push you, and this is your first experience. You're the only one of your siblings to do it. And you just kept saying, well, I'm just going to see how far I can go. I'm going to see how
yeah,
far I can go. And
yeah.
so to just be able to even hear your story as it relates to just, I didn't have to do this, but I kept pushing myself and pushing myself, and here I am. I am curious, how what was it like to be a social worker in New York? I mean, most of my goddesses are here in the South. I'm,
Mhm.
and I have a couple who are licensed in New York, but you were licensed in New York, a social worker through the 80s, 90s, I'm assuming. And what was that
And more,
experience?
I graduated in 2000.
In 2000. Okay.
Yeah.
So what was that experience like for you being a social worker in New York?
Well, it was challenging. And again, you come to the table, you're not fully confident. And oftentimes, at the time that I was involved, I worked in two outpatient clinics. And the client list was extensive, and sometimes they did not have enough help. But you do get a lot of exposure to different client needs and different populations. And I've had a little of everything. And it was a challenge, a test and a challenge for me at the time because some things were acceptable in society. You know, we live in a different world now, and some things were not acceptable. And so you have to be open-minded, of course, and be able to accept the whatever the presents itself. You have to start where the client is. That's something that used to be a popular statement. I don't know if they continue to utilize that, but you start where the client is and you work your way from there. And I've had some, like I said, challenging situations with populations that I did not feel I was not qualified to act. My agency may have accepted at the time some cases that we were not really equipped to deal with, and we got through it. But it can, it's very rewarding, but it's also very challenging. It's very serious work. And mental health is very serious. And we unfortunately there's a stigma attached to it in many cultures, but we have to continue to work hard to overcome that because a lot of people that need the service don't feel they need it, and you have negative perceptions about it, but it's definitely needed. And I worked my way through a lot of things that I did not think I would encounter. And when I look back at it, I said, I was not prepared for that, but I got through it. I learned a lot from it, and it helped me to become the person I am today. So there's a lot of opportunities for learning, a lot of opportunities for us to understand different cultures and different ways of thinking, and we have to be respectful and mindful and accept people for who they are, what they bring to the table, when they come and to the door, and continue to build our skill level and be our awareness so that we can be as proficient and effective in our jobs as we can.
Absolutely. And I love that you're even saying and stay open to new populations that you're going to probably start working with. Like you said,
Yeah.
I didn't know I was going to work with aging, dementia, and Alzheimer's, and now here you are. I'm curious, how did you said it was a precarious way that you got into this space? What was your journey getting you into the dementia space?
Well, sadly, my mother became ill in 2023, and that started her journey with dementia. She had some additional chronic health problems that compounded her situation, and I was one of her caregivers along with my brother. And I was not familiar with dementia or Alzheimer's. That was the last thing I could imagine my mother would get. She had a number of issues going on with her health, but nothing that was acute at the time. She was being treated by a different specialist, but again, nothing stood out as this is, going downhill and rapidly. So when she did want to, she would have a little ups and downs here and there, but pretty much it was more related to just pain from arthritis and gout and things along those lines. But she just one day she just wanted to go to the emergency room. She wasn't feeling good, and I look in hindsight, I believe my mother knew that things were not well with her. At that point, she was 85, 84, and once went in for she went to the emergency room, they kept her, and they said that, she was having some complications with her hypertension. And from there, she had some other issues, and she wound up, when it was time for her to be discharged, she went to a rehab center for about 3 weeks, and that worked fine. But when it was time for her to be discharged, they started talking about hospice. And I just lost my mind. I said, hospice, because to me, hospice means, hey, you're getting ready to check out in a little while. So it was just so out of the blue for me. And I just was like, hospice? Are you kidding me? Well, like what's the problem here? I was looking at her diagnosis, and unfortunately, sometimes communication issues arise when in healthcare settings, and we were not on the same page in a lot of ways. And I just found myself trying to navigate different systems that were not very friendly. And so my mother eventually came home on hospice and was getting services, but her condition continued to decline. And my mother was a little on the heavy side. So she was also developing different complications like bed sores, and she developed gangrene in her foot. And we were misled about things happening to her and believing that she was going to get better. We were told oh yes, continue doing this. Well, we're saying, well, this is going on. And they would tell us, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. And we're doing it. Oh yeah, that's going to get better. And in a couple of weeks, that'll be better and blah, blah. And my mother just continued to decline. And so eventually she wound up in the hospital again. And she stayed this time for about a month and a half, about a month. And she had developed kidney disease. She went on dialysis, and things just went downhill from there. And eventually, the last time she was discharged, they told me she was diagnosed with dementia. Never formally kind of sat down and said, well, your mom has dementia, and this is what you can expect. And we're gonna, there's no treatment, or, it was just like she's got dementia. Just kind of like, by the way, she has dementia. And I was like, okay. Because this is how I found out she had dementia. I had visited her one day, and my mother said, well, I was talking to my father's name was Nathaniel, but they called him, they had a nickname for him. Let's say Sammy. She said, I was talking to Sammy, and he told me, blah, blah. I was talking to Sammy a few minutes ago, and I said, talking to Sammy. And the nurse was in the room at the time. She said, oh, yeah, that happens with dementia. And I'm like, well, nobody told me she had dementia. So this is news to me. So it was just a very disappointing situation with her health, and things just deteriorated rapidly. And within maybe 6 months, my mom was gone. When she came home the last time, I had a room set up in my house, and within 2 weeks, she was gone. I know she was not going to make it because she was off the dialysis at that point. And without dialysis, it's not, there's no hope for you. So she passed away. And throughout that 9-month ordeal, we'll say, I had so many complications and difficulties trying to navigate the healthcare system for her. It was just unbelievable. And after that situation, it's just by chance I happened to be a member of a quilting club. And we started making, we would make quilts and different things and donate them to hospices or hospitals and rehab centers. So they started a new project, which was something called the fidget blanket. And so I said, okay, this is a good idea. I think I want to work on this. So I said, yeah, this is great. So as I worked on the fidget blankets and became more adept at it and started making my own designs and stuff, I said, I want to find out more about this Alzheimer's and dementia. And I just delved into it and dug deeper. And I just, decided, I spoke, said, I want to do a ministry, a health ministry. And I've identified locations I could acquire materials, and started doing my study and getting certificates, and really did my homework on it. And I just became more passionate about it, shared it with my church. My pastor was excited. His mother had Alzheimer's. His wife's mother had Alzheimer's. So I started running to people that had gone through an Alzheimer's journey, and they was very supportive and said, this is something our community needs. So we just continue to develop it, and it has just grown exponentially. And I do a lot of outreach in the community, and I'm excited, and I just look forward to seeing where it's going to go. We did have a goal within the church of trying to open a respite program, which would be a half day daycare program basically for dementia patients, where they would come and get some socialization and get involved in some activities, do some maybe memory type of with music ministry within that daycare program, where they would do things similar to what we were introduced to at the forum in March, and yeah, with the Mama Joe filming with your sister and her program. So at some point we do hope to open a respite ministry, but right now with the climate in terms of the economy, it's just not the right time. So in the meantime, we're still pursuing developing our outreach in the community, sharing information with different faith ministries, and in general, just getting the word out. And it's been really a wonderful opportunity, and it's grown by leaps and bounds beyond my imagination. So, and it's continuing to grow. So, we're happy about that.
That feels like such a beautiful legacy to your mama, too. You
Yes,
know?
I'm happy that it represents my commitment to the love I had and the memory I had of her. And we also have incorporated a new project, which is memory blankets. So we're doing memory quilts, and I'm working on one at this time in memory of my mom. So I hope more people. That's a tradition actually that has been around within the Black culture for some time, but it kind of died down in the South. But we want to revive that because it's important. And what you do is you use different remnants from their wardrobe. What stood out to you, what was special to you, and you incorporate that with new material and you build a quilt from that. And also now with technology, you can also include images of the individual, transfer them to fabric, and make something really beautiful for the family. So that's
And I
great.
know, Rev Ledyard, that I want to say it was earlier this year, 2025, that you and your fidgeting blanket group, y'all were on the news.
Yes, we were. In March, we were on the news, and that was a wonderful opportunity to expose the type of work that we do in the community and share that this quilting opportunity is available to the public. And we do offer free workshops, and we will have some coming up soon that, and if anyone was interested, we would be happy to host them. Actually, in September, we're going to be hosting a workshop for the fidget blankets. And we have a special project with them as well for the veterans. We're working on patriotic theme fidget blankets that we would hope to donate to them on Veterans Day. We're aiming for 100. So we're looking for people to donate fabric, materials, gadgets, thread, whatever, to help us to make this dream come true.
That is awesome. And we'll make sure that we have your link or some type of contact information in the podcast description so people can donate or volunteer. But I'm curious, we kind of ran through because we were in your journey, but I got to see your fidget blankets up in person. I mean, my son still talks about how cool they were.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Okay.
we have pictures of them, and they're so beautiful and colorful. But what is a fidget blanket? Who uses it? Why do you think it is important for this particular space?
Well, a fidget blanket is a therapeutic aid that is used to help stimulate the individual. It could be Alzheimer's dementia, it could be an autism patient, and sometimes they're a little fidgety. So this blanket has different gadgets, zippers, buttons, pull toys, textured fabrics, leather, suede, yarn, different things on there to help them keep their activity, distract them and keep their hands busy when they go through these little spells of activity. So it says it is tremendously helpful. It's been around for a while, and they use it in different medical settings, hospitals, nursing homes, and hospice. As a matter of fact, I just finished, I'm working on a project I'm wrapping up now where I did 50 fidget blankets for a hospice in Kentucky. So I'm excited that we were able to make that that dream come true for them and get that project completed. So it's therapeutic, and again, social workers, occupational therapists, physical therapy, doctors, nurses, a lot of different people in the medical profession do use it to work with people that have a little issue with the being fidgety and active. And it's more or less a sensory type of therapeutic intervention.
And not only, it sounds like would it be therapeutic for the person, including someone who has ADHD, maybe, right? But
Absolutely,
also, yeah,
absolutely.
but
Yes, definitely.
also it being therapeutic for the creator of the blanket, you guys who are who are making them in
Yeah,
that.
you know,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, absolutely. Because I don't none all of mines are made differently. All those 50 that we complete, each one is different. So you have, you take some pride in how you select the items. You think about, what they're going to be doing with it. How can I make this really pop? You really want it to be something that stands out. And so I go a little extra, go a little extra mile with mine because I want it to stand out and want you to, yeah, like, where's my fidget blanket at? So I'm excited about it. Excited about it.
It sounds
And
like an
look for
amazing project. And again, such a beautiful legacy to your mama. Thank you so much for sharing that story. But I like that it's expanding now, even into the memory blankets. And you're right, that is something culturally we have done. And to hear that it's coming back could again be therapeutic for the person making it and then the person who is receiving it as well.
absolutely.
Yeah. Rev, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next question. I think it's a good segue, but I'm curious, what in your journey in this work, what are some misunderstood aspects of aging?
Well, I do believe that we live in a society, they have a word called ageism, and where age people that are older are discriminated against, unfortunately. And it's something that we really have to work on reversing. And the wisdom and knowledge that older people bring and an experience is of tremendous value. And I don't think we are really tapping into that and making them feel like they are part of the fabric of society. So we need to be more respectful, more mindful, more accepting, especially within the dementia, Alzheimer's population. There's also, we were talking about stigma and mental health. There's also stigma within the Alzheimer's and dementia realm. So we do need to try to be more understanding and try to be more welcoming. So within the faith community, for example, they do have guides that are helping people to understand that maybe within the services, there can be some adjustments made so that people with Alzheimer's and dementia who may have a sensitivity, may have some sensory issues, maybe you can tone, not sing as many songs or tone the music down some or do other things that, just make them feel like they are part of the fabric and not, we don't want people to feel like you're not welcome. We want them to feel like this is a caring environment, this is a welcoming and friendly environment. And there has really been a push for more churches to try to become more dementia friendly. So they have guides out there and different organizations that do work exclusively to promote that. And hopefully we're going to be seeing them more in our communities doing work, but it's a slow process. I just put it, it's just slow. It's a
It
slow
is,
process.
but you know what? I'm going to include, besides how people can get in contact with you, I'm also going to add Dr. Fayron Epps. She has a program called Alter Dementia, and she does come to churches to
Yes,
help
she
them
does.
learn how to become more dementia friendly in that particular congregation so that member people living with dementia and or their caregivers can continue to be a part of the fabric. So we'll make sure we put her website in the podcast description as well if church members are looking to see how they can be included in doing this important work.
Absolutely. And they have to be introduced to it. It has to
Hmm.
be introduced as a subject that is of concern in the community and something we want to address and change, reverse, turn it around. We want people to feel welcome. A lot of people that left the church after COVID have not come back. Some of those people may be families that have caregivers for one reason or another. Some people may be dementia or Alzheimer's patient. We want them to come back. We want them to feel welcome. We want to cater to their spiritual and wherever we can, their physical needs also. So it's a we have to work together on that. We have to work together.
And I hope this podcast is part of that energy of calling back people into community and talking about and sharing the resources that will help us to bring us back into community, because that was the whole reason I started the podcast, was because I wanted to meet other social workers and create community around around social work. And so hopefully you talking to us putting some resources in your podcast description, we are including and making sure we are creating community for folks to come back and feel part of the fabric. I'm curious, Reverend Ledyard. I almost call you Dr. Ledyard. I've done that several times. But Reverend Ledyard, what is one belief about social work that you started this journey with that you feel has changed the most for you?
Well, back then,
Mm-hmm.
we did a lot of work by hand, you know. So technology is the most explosive thing that I feel has happened to help us in the social work field. And it's a wonderful thing. Like I said, we did all our progress notes by hand. Everything was done by hand back then. And that's quarterly reports and all these different things that were required when you were had a case there. At this point, I'm not in the field of doing that intensive psychotherapy, but when I left the field, they were beginning to introduce the computers. And I think it was, like a godsend. People were this is the answer to a prayer. So you could get your work done. And because those things a lot of things would just pile up. It just seemed like quarterly reports, it seemed like you were doing them every week. And it was a lot of work. And I think that might have been something that people may have hindered their choice to do this type of work because of the amount of documentation. So I'm happy that there's been an improvement in that. And also with the technology in terms of what we're doing right now, the digital and the opportunity to do telehealth, and that has been tremendously helpful to social workers. So I do believe that technology would get my vote as the number one thing that has made a big difference in how social work is done. And hopefully we'll continue to see things improve. I know my daughter's in the field of mental health as well, and she does telehealth. And you do is a way, in addition to what you may do on your primary job, this is also a little side job that you can do. And now I'm just amazed at, with the how social workers are being more respected in terms of what they deserve to be, how they deserve to be compensated. It's a very, very interesting and can be lucrative if you are committed to it. It can work for you. It can work for you. So that's one of the more exciting things. And also how the push for more awareness and increase our awareness of cultural diversity and acceptance of people of different, different, whatever you choose, however you choose to align yourself. We have been trained to be more open and welcoming, and that's a wonderful thing. It's, people, it's still a work in progress, but people are, I think, open to accepting whoever needs help, whoever walks in my door, I'm going to work with them. And that's how we have to be. We cannot be selective. Some people have the luxury of being selective, but if we are true social workers, our heart is in it and we want to serve the people and meet their needs. So I'm excited about that. So the mobile phones, the virtual meetings, and all this, social media, all these things help us to reach new audiences and help people understand different things about social work and hopefully reduce the stigma and make people feel like this is something that's for me. It's going to help me to be more productive, lead a more fulfilling life. So let me give it a try. It's worth it. It's
That,
worth it.
and you can get paid well.
Yes,
And you
yes.
can get paid. That was such a beautiful, unexpected answer. I love that because I remember writing notes by hand, group notes,
Hmm.
didactic group notes, when you can have over 50 people in your group, in your psychoeducational group, and having to write each one of those notes by hand. I remember that. And yeah. And so the technology now that is not as I know some people still are doing that, but it's not as widespread as it was. And when you were talking about social work teaches us to treat and accept and my words, love on everybody. That's
Mm.
why I became a social worker. I remember in the hall of my school of social work program, they had it's famous now, probably was famous then, but all the different colored hands. And that just
Oh,
to
okay.
me was like the epitome of social work. We are and love and treat everybody.
Yes,
And that was one of the reasons I wanted to be a social worker and love being a social worker, because if even if people have niche down or have a certain population they enjoy treating, even within that population, there's going to be diverse groups of people that you get to work with. And so
absolutely.
we're coming up on the end of our time together, Reverend Ledyard, and it's been such a joy. Just have a couple more questions. And it's, I have we have this gem of wisdom with all this, because you sent me a PowerPoint presentation when I met you at the event we did in May, at the end of May. You had a whole table full of resources, and we were grabbing them, the fidget blankets. I want to know, is there anything about the dementia and Alzheimer's space as a resource that you would want to leave with social workers and caregivers, that you feel like is one of the things we need to know about that particular population?
Well, what can hinder us sometimes is the inability to share and, well, take this with you, read this when you get home. This is very informative. You want to share, you want people to become aware and be informed, but sometimes it can become a problem if you're the one that has to, foot the bill for these, informative pamphlets, booklets, and whatever. So I would say, do your homework and utilize what's free, what's available through the different channels of the government, National Institutes of Health, Department of Aging. See what's out there and, start stockpiling it so that when you have a presentation or workshop or whatever, you'll be able to someone will walk away with something that will help them they can refer back to. They may remember some things about the presentation, but if they can walk away with some pamphlets, some handouts, something that they can reference and share with someone else when they get home, I think that's tremendously useful. Definitely. And just continue to be, stay on top of things with in terms of continuing education. There's always room for growth. We learn, we grow, we share with others, help others. In some countries, people are not don't have access to a lot of the resources that we might have. We can share with them in different ways to help them to get the word out wherever they are. So just tap into what's available and utilize it well. Utilize it well because we don't know tomorrow. It may not be available. So that's how I look at it. It's here today, but tomorrow you don't know. So tap into those things and just stay on top of what's happening in the field through your continuing education so that you can be as informed as you need to be because things are changing every day, especially, with the changes in different leadership, things change from one day to the next. So build up your resource base. You become the person that they're looking for. They come to you. You don't have to seek people out. They come to you because they know that you have a resource base that, and you know how to tap in and they invite you to something. They know that people are going to walk away with some information that's going to be helpful. I think that's something we overlook. I really do. And we have to try to when we are asked to do different things or be on a panel, when we come to a presentation, wow them. So they like, hey, I want that person to come back, So we got to put our best foot forward all the time. We all got to put our best foot forward all the time because unfortunately, sometimes with people of color, the expectation is not there that you're going to be on point with stuff. So we want to shock them and say, yes, I'm ready. I'm here. This is all my stuff. Yes, I'm ready to share and to help you to become as knowledgeable as I am, if possible.
That was amazing. That was an amazing answer. One, that was just a masterclass on how to be excellent. Yeah, I know that we've talked about you. Whenever I get to interact with you, I'm like, oh my gosh, you just exude excellence. And you just gave us a masterclass on excellence.
Well, what I want your students to take away is that they can become whoever they want to be. If they have gone to a seminar or a conference or a symposium and seen people doing that, they can be those people. They could be those people. So you just have to, commit yourself, build yourself up, and bring your A game all the time because they're not expecting us to bring it, but we got to bring it double. That's how you got to bring it double. So that's what I've been trying to do.
And that is exactly what you did. I'm wondering, do you want that to be your final word of advice, or did you prepare a final word of advice for our audience today?
Well, I did not prepare anything specifically in terms of a final word of advice, but I'm being realistic, and my statement is based on my observations. And in this field right now, there's so much room for growth. You really can make impact and really stand out because not a lot of people are doing. They have been doing things not behind the scenes, but it's just been kind of because you may not be familiar with the dynamics of how this disease works and you may have a difficult navigate. It may be difficult navigating, but once you really get to understand it, if this is something you really want to pursue and bring to your community, share with in different ways, you have to build yourself up, tap into the resources that are available, and be the best that you can at what you do. Really, not just do a halfway, really bring 100%. Like you're serious about it. Like you can go to an event and two or three people. Well, those two or three people are gonna get the best information I have. They're gonna get is the same information that 100 people would get. I'm gonna give you just as much. I want you to leave here well informed and aware and being able to share what you learned with someone else when you go home. Mhm.
Absolutely. I love that. And you just put fire under me as well. Like, oh, am I bringing my A game? Am I bringing in all the different arenas? And how can I bring my A game? Because if we're going to do it with excellence. And that is
Yeah, because
absolutely what you've done today.
once you become more you start traveling or attending more seminars and workshops, you're going to see few people of color on these panels. So we are building up our base and we'll be able to, if someone sees us in action, they'll be, yes, they are on point. They are doing what they need to do. They're bringing it down there in Montgomery. Check them out. They're bringing it.
Yes, yes, I love
So,
it. Yes, and I'm on the train. I want to be on the train. I love it. Reverend Ledyard, this was an amazing podcast interview. I am so honored that you said yes to come on the show. I feel inspired and like, oh, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. But
yeah,
thank you
well,
so
anytime I
much.
just want to be able to share information, and that information I shared about the international is important because you do work with people from different countries, and
Mhm.
they may not know if they're interested in this subject matter and this field. They may not know how to tap into it. So I shared with you some information that's kind of basic, but it helps them become familiar with the issues, and if they're interested in pursuing it further, a sense of direction on where they can go.
Absolutely. And I'll try to make sure I have all that in the podcast description. And just thank you again, Reverend
You're
Ledyard.
welcome. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity, and it's always a pleasure to meet with you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Goddesses of Social Work podcast. We are glad you were here. If you like this episode, please come back to hear more stories of the journeys through social work, and please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. See you next time here on the Goddesses of Social Work podcast.